the purpose of the speech is to reintroduce Scott to Toastmasters and to introduce him to Masters Evaluation Club. I'll be particularly paying attention to, Scott has asked me to pay attention to Zoom presentation skills, and also that he delivers an introduction to himself in an entertaining way. Best of luck, Scott.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster, and greetings to all my fellow Toastmasters. As the Toastmaster said, a couple of weeks ago, I heard from Vicki. She said, I'm doing this group. I'm involved in Toastmasters, Masters of Evaluation. Oh dear, I was excited to hear about it. But you know what? If Vicki's involved, there are two things you need to know. Number one, if she's involved in a big way. And number two, if she's involved in a big way, it's going to be good. I had to come. I just had to come. You know, the minute I raised my hand and said I'd like to join and see if I could be a speaker, Vicki said, you should speak now. In fact, it wasn't a suggestion. I became a speaker today. My first speech that I ever gave was the icebreaker, and I felt the same pang of anxiety. Oh my gosh, what do I have to say? In the past, I'd read the manual, and the icebreaker is all about me, and that always felt awkward and clunky, self-serving even. And even though my evaluator was kind, I didn't like how it came out. And so I'm here today to talk to you about a different way of looking at me, my icebreaker, my introduction to you, and that is my mentors, my teachers. One of my best friends told me, he said to me, Scott, when they were setting up the lottery for great parents, you got the golden ticket. My first two mentors in my life certainly were my parents, and I learned so much from them. I'm going to keep a limit to the information that I have for you about each of these mentors, but my father taught me what it was to be a man of duty, to know what your responsibilities were, and to follow through and make sure they were taken care of. Led by example. My mother was more subtle. One of my favorite sayings that she gave to me was, you know, Scott, nothing is ever as good or as bad as it's first reported. She told me, stop overreacting. What a great way to remember that. My first grade teacher was never one to do criticism of me. However, she was pretty smart. The one thing she didn't know about me is I couldn't see the board from the back of the room. Back in the day when teachers would teach on a chalkboard, you had to be able to see it. So I moved to the front row, and to do that, I had to come early to get a seat in the front row. And there I sat, learning from Mrs. Johnson every day. Pretty soon, I think she thought I was kind of interested in her work. I became interested in learning everything. And the thing I learned from Mrs. Johnson was there's true joy in becoming the teacher's pet. Because when you're a teacher's pet, they take interest in you and they make sure you grow. I think another word for being the teacher's pet is to be a mentee of that mentor. My grandfather was a very smart man, but he was self-educated. He taught himself to play chess when he had taken a year abroad in France and sat on the Seine River playing chess with all the old masters along the river there. He taught me to play chess. And as he swept the board clean of my pieces, one at a time, each day, I'd find myself losing, and we'd come to the point of checkmate, and he would always spin the board around. And when he did so, he'd say, now, show me how I need to win this. You know what? He let me win. Over and over and over, he let me win. But the thing I learned was I got better and better. And then one day he didn't have to turn the board. And I won. I thought for sure the lesson of the day was there's joy in winning. But all I had to do was look up and see there was my grandfather, smiling from ear to ear, cheeks rosier than ever. And I knew the lesson was the real joy is helping somebody else get better and better and better. There is, of course, another great mentor in my life, the Dame Vicki Tremash. She draws people into events like this. She's a magnet. When my mom died, I asked Vicki, can I do the eulogy as a speech? Practice it at Toastmasters? She said in a private conversation, oh, yes. In fact, I insist. Oh, pitter patter my heart. I would tell you her evaluation was gentle, but it was so on point that when I did deliver the eulogy, it was better than it could have been, and it was easier to deliver. Thank you, Vicki. Oh, while we're talking about people that have left the planet, I will tell you about my brother. He lost a battle with diabetes about a year ago. Broke my heart. But I would tell you this. All of his adult life, he studied Native American cultures, got so entrenched in it that he would get invited to go do sweat lodges and rain dances and all crazy stuff. And he'd come back and tell us great stories. And one of the things he told me was, hey, when you see a hawk or an eagle flying over, those are your ancestors coming to visit. Kind of blew it off like we blew off all of his Indian stories. Made me smile, though. The other day, though, I was out, having lost both my parents and my brother. I was out for a hike in the pines here in Bend, Oregon, and I felt a shadow overhead. 3 red-tailed hawks circling around and around without even trying. My brother taught me that there really are angels. Pitter patter. Finally, I would tell you about my wife. Talk about a mentor by example. She's worked all of our 37 years together. Hard, job outside home. But our home is always clean. Yes, Vicki, she does dust. Here's the thing. Together we raised 2 kids. But I believe a mother is judged by the children that come out as adults. My kids are well educated, but not just educated from a book sense. They're kind, they're competitive, they're generous. And all the while, for 37 years, she managed to love me. Imagine that. So finally, I would tell you, fellow Toastmasters, if you come across an interesting person, sit up front, get interested in them, be a part of learning from them. Maybe you'll learn something that'll change your life, fellow Toastmasters.
Our second evaluator, evaluating Scott Oliver with his Icebreaker 2.0, David Ryan, Advanced Communicator Bronze DL4. David Ryan, please.
Mr. Sit up front. You might just learn something that'll change your life. Madam Toastmaster, Mr. General Evaluator, Mr. Timer, fellow Toastmasters, and most especially Scott. You had given me some pointers in advance as to things that you wanted me to focus on. And when you had said intro speeches can sometimes be a little bit tedious, so I'm going to talk about mentors in my life. I was a little worried because sometimes mentorship speeches can also be a little bit tedious, but boy, did you nail it. I mean, this was an incredibly powerful speech. Not only did you fulfill the objectives of an icebreaker and introducing us to the club and giving you a sense of who you are and the mentors who have helped you to become who you are, but you did so in an incredibly personal and powerful way. And not only that, but you left us with a really powerful message to boot. So this was a really, really great speech. We're nominally an advanced club, and this was a very advanced icebreaker. In terms of the structure, you had a nice introduction, then led through the 7 mentors and the lessons that they had given you, and then you wrapped it up with a very punchy closing, so really well done. The delivery, I'm going to focus a little bit on the delivery because that is something that you had requested, Scott. So I found many of your delivery techniques were probably honed when you were a member of Toastmasters previously, I'm assuming. You had great hand gestures. I loved how you showed flipping the chessboard, and you knocking the pieces off. So, really good hand gestures, and they worked just as well, I would say, online in this environment probably as they would have done in practice. My one suggestion for delivering an online speech, it really does help to stand up and to have that little bit more freedom and flexibility, because sometimes we can be a bit stifled sitting down. At least that's my impression. And my other suggestion is to mind the lighting. So it looks like there's a window slightly to the side, and when that shines in, sometimes it can saturate the view a little bit. So closing the curtains if you need to get the lighting right is really helpful. Not really sure what else to say to challenge yourself, Scott. It was a really great speech. I enjoyed it. I took very powerful lessons away from it, and I really looking forward to hearing your next speech. Thanks very much.